Nice. I feel like the beginning of this needs to start with a hug, man.
Yeah.
This is Sippy, Sipophala.
Yeah. Good job. Yeah.
And I thought he would be a great first guest because, man, like the history of my career, I guess, is like shared with the history of your career.
Absolutely.
And also the origins and beginnings of the story, and then mainly you're just like one of the most epic human beings I've ever met in my life, and in terms of like who you are as a person, you're just like one of the most beautiful humans, man. And I just love you.
I love you.
And we'll get. I'll let you obviously go crazy, but just for the intro, like your story is very powerful and needs to be shared and heard.
I was like when you hit me up to do this, I was reflecting on a relationship.
Yeah.
For the last 10 years. And
yeah.
It's been a lot that's happened, from just a couple of kids in New Hampshire that there was no industry, there was nothing, and, there wasn't much going on. And, just a brief introduction, kind of got the ball rolling. And 10 years later, you have videos that are, Grammy nominated, I have millions of streams,
Killing it. I was at the bank the other day. I think it was it the bank? And it was like a random lady was like, "Oh, they found out I did music videos, and you were the name." They were like, "Have you ever heard of Sip? He's like a guy from." I'm like, "Yes, I've done his video."
Oh, that's crazy.
It was like the most random shout out.
That is crazy.
Yeah, it was awesome.
But we've built such a strong community,
Yeah.
in a small city per se. When you think of music industry, you think LA, New York, even DC, Texas. You don't really Houston, Atlanta. You don't think New England at all. And the ripple effect that our relationship had throughout New England has been phenomenal. So, just as much respect that you have for me, I have that for you in my heart. And on a business and on a professional and on a personal level, the feelings mutual.
I appreciate it, man. You've been like when I met you. How old were you when I met you?
I think I was 21.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
21. Yeah.
Yeah, so like we've known each other since, and I was definitely in my 20s as well.
About a decade.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been about a decade.
Yeah, so it's been a long time.
Yeah, it has.
And we started. I think you were the first hip hop, per se, music video that I ever did.
It's funny, right? So that song was my first. Flex was my first original song.
Yeah.
So Flex, my first original song, is the first time I had a beat that was actually mine. I used to just rap over popular beats. And I remember when we got, the connection to shoot the video, I was like, it's going to be whatever. And then you blew me away. I didn't realize how good you were. The whole production, the whole team,
I didn't realize how good I was at that time. That's the thing. Yeah. We were like all learning together, like, how can we create? And I think that like was what was beautiful is we all made that happen together.
Yeah.
And part of the reason the video is so good is you.
Yeah,
Part of it, most of the reason.
Well, you were always the vision, and so after that, I think that's just when it sparked. Like, oh wow, we can really take this to the next level, and the rest of it's history. You know?
And Sean Mitchell too. I mean, he was a big player in that.
Yeah, huge.
Shout out Sean Mitchell, legend.
Yeah.
One of my favorite projects you ever did was Terrorist People.
Oh yeah,
I love that project.
Yeah. So, I grew up in America, my household, I'm a Muslim Afghan kid, but I went to American public school. Yeah. My friends are all, I lived in Windsor, Connecticut.
Yeah.
Just like average white kids, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I remember we moved out of New York because businesses got rough for Afghans, specifically because the war on terror started with Afghanistan. So when we moved, we got away from the city where there's a lot of Muslims, a lot of diversity, to Windsor, Connecticut, where I'm the only Afghan kid in the whole school. Yeah. And I was a tough kid,
right?
Emotionally and mentally, but it was like a thing. It was like, the terrorist jokes, obviously.
Yeah.
So for a while, it's like they're kids, and then as I started growing older, you start seeing adults say things, and you're like, well, we're not kids anymore. Like you,
Yeah, like grow up.
Yeah, you know, like grow. Like you really firmly believe that. And I remember at the time, I just wanted to break that notion where I was like, Afghans are so much, you know what I mean? Afghans are so much more. And that's why I brought up the fact that you've been to my house. We're regular people. We're like moms and dads and, you know, husbands and, you know, like, and that video, I remember the hardest part was getting an airport to film at, you know, and somehow they pitched the idea, and the people thought that it was such a strong idea that they gave us an airport to shoot at, you know?
Yeah.
And
that was Revelry Studios did that.
Yeah, Matt.
Amazing job.
Yeah, Matt and Tyler, they killed it. And when we filmed it and we released it, till this day, people still say, like, you know, I see like it gets posted on social media, on TikTok, whatever, and I get tagged about how impactful it was, you know? It's weird though, because it's like a double-edged sword. So you drop it and you bring attention to the idea that it exists, but then at the same time, you're bringing attention to the idea it exists. So you're do you understand what that, like what I'm trying to say by that is, like, on both ends, you know, you're kind of like stirring up the pot, and that conversation becomes, and most people are afraid of that conversation because they want to act like it doesn't exist, but racism is very well alive. And I'm not one to, you know.
You're not on your pedestal about it.
It's not, but I know there's kids that are probably going through it, or adults that are going through it that don't know how to counter it. I was also like, I was the type of kid that got along with everyone, so it kind of just maneuvered my way, but some people just didn't know how, you know, and they're suffering. It's something we have strong in the Afghan communities called identity crisis. Yeah. I never released a song, but I had a song called Identity Crisis where we're one way at home and we're a different way in public. And we kind of have to play that double role, because the people that we want to be all the time is not accepted by American society. And then the outside version of us is not accepted at the house. So the two cultures are probably the two most far apart cultures possible. Yeah. And, you know, kind of bringing that together right now as a whole world, it's still a conflict till this day, is hard. It's probably the most talked about political topic is the West versus Islam, you know, and I think it's going to be for a while until both parties kind of, you know, one lets the other be and the other, you know, lets the other be. So that project, I feel like the idea of the video, I didn't realize how much more work needed to be done. Once I released the video, I was like, this is not enough.
Yeah. The video, by the way, is like a story of your life after the events of 9/11 and
exactly.
kind of what you went through.
Yeah, exactly.
And people just staring at you and things like that.
Yeah, and
it's a great, amazing video. I love that video.
Thanks. Yeah, and you know, but it is what it is. There's all kinds of people going through struggles. That just happened to be my story, you know, and
well, it's your story, but it's so many more people's story too.
Yeah.
And it is a story that not enough people talk about. I agree.
And now, I don't know if you've noticed, there's a lot of refugees coming to America because of the war ending, and they're Afghan. And I see these guys come, and it's a whole different world. They don't know how to pay their phone bills. They don't, you know, it makes me appreciate what my dad did. So these guys got sponsored to come, and they get, you know, the American government helps them, which is beautiful, you know. I'm saying all this, but at the same time, you see what our government does for these people. You know, they're helping them seek refuge, you know. But my dad came with nothing. He didn't know any English, you know, so he didn't know, you know, he didn't have a job. He didn't have any family here. He just kind of came, worked for a couple bucks an hour, you know, and look at where we are today. Yeah. You know, and
there's such a sense of family business, like that. You're like, your family has multiple businesses.
Yeah.
As a family.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
And I think that's the idea that, like, I tell people, and they're like, what do you mean? Like, these are all, like, which one's yours and which one's that's a question now, because we have 4 locations now.
Yeah.
And people come and they're like,
is one of them yours?
Yeah, and no, they're
just all family.
All family. So,
I don't know. Maybe it became like a competition thing. All of a sudden,
like opening to my dad. You know, and that happens in American society. You know, like, father and son had to fall out. The son opened there, but to us, it's like everything I do, I don't even consider myself. I consider my family.
Yeah.
You know, it's just
Yeah, that's beautiful.
It takes realization, because I did grow up here, and all my friends did kind of go off and do their own thing. And sometimes, as a 30-year-old young man, you're thinking like, damn, you're like still like around your parents, but they don't realize it's different. It's our goal is that they raise us. Mm-hmm. And then at a certain point, it flips. When they get to an old age, we start taking care of them.
Right.
And, I'm sure there's a lot of other people that believe that, but I'm obsessed with that idea. And until I firmly believe that everything's settled, I won't stop thinking about specifically them before myself,
I feel like globally there's so many cultures that have that.
I think now it's becoming more of a norm because of how much of a melting pot and how much information is shared globally so easily now.
Yeah.
That, more and more people are realizing it's how you feel in the heart. When you really reflect this, I really got here when I reached the most pain in my life. I've always felt like this. The pain kind of just shakes everything out of you, and you're like, I don't really care about none of this. I only care about these people. Like, I don't care to look. I don't care to look cool. Like, I don't care to go out and make my friends happy. Like, what about I want to make my mom happy on the weekend. Like, what can I do to take some pressure off of her? Because, when you're really struggling and you're at your lowest points, they're the only people that really are genuinely there every second, every minute, and they feel the pain that you feel. And I think more and more people are starting to wake up, and more people are starting to turn and be like, hey, like, your family's important, parents are important, and marriages are important, and taking care of your kids are important.
Yeah.
So
I think you and I both share the fact that we're lucky to have the parents we have.
Your parents are beautiful people too.
Oh my God, they're amazing. And just the family, like the way, the way you're raised really is like family to family has such an effect on your life, man.
Yeah. And those things stay with you. I'm a firm believer that the way you treat your parents is the way that your kids are going to treat you. And that's kind of how I've been approaching my relationship with my parents. Is as much good as I do, I feel like it's going to come back to me through my kids. And as much pain as I cause them, it's going to come back to me through my kids. So,
did you ever feel like the music career aspect of your life was ever clashing with the family business aspect?
100% did. Yeah.
Oh, it did.
Yeah. So that was the hardest part of my whole career on both aspects. And that's something that I've never spoken about publicly. Because I don't think anyone would really understand what I was going through. I mean, to people, they're just like, oh, dude, you're hanging out. It's your dad's spot. And then, like, you go do crazy videos, and they thought I was just, like, rich, spoiled kid. Like, it's a notion that, like, oh, he's always just been loaded,
Yeah.
And they didn't realize. I remember, I'll never forget, I opened up for Lil Uzi Vert in Lowell. I think it was, like, performed for 2,000 people. And it was great. Fans are taking pictures. We went after. We did an after party. I get paid to, host a show at a club.
Yeah.
The next day, I'm back at the store, and I remember standing there and being like, damn, like, the customers bickering over like,
there goes my dream.
Yeah. Like, this is reality. And I remember I took it to the chin, and I just started scrubbing all the floors in the floor in the entire restaurant. And I said, this is my reality.
Wow.
The sooner I accept this, the more all of it's going to pay off in the end. And I specifically remember, I'll never forget it. I'm literally by the mop sink, like a place that most, like, you don't really like just go and scrub. And I'm just scrubbing it because of that.
Yeah.
Hey, I need to just shake it off. I need to shake the hype off. I need to shake off the facade. I'm only allowed that opportunity because of this restaurant, because that restaurant was the place where I met everyone. It was the breadwinner for the family.
Yeah.
Music wasn't paying off at that point. And then on the
as it doesn't.
It doesn't, and that's what most people don't understand. They see this facade of like, I think everyone watching nowadays knows.
It's literally flex.
Everyone knows. Yeah, exactly. And then it got to a point where I was like, if I just literally was telling Ammo when we walked in, the amount of hours you put in writing, the amount of hours you put in the studio, the amount of hours you put on set, the amount of hours you spend on social media, networking, if you just put that to anything else, you're good.
Yeah.
You're good.
So
Literally, and you're good. And I think that's what happened to me, where I was just getting to this point where,
Well, it's
you
like
know.
it's devastatingly competitive, the music industry, right? Like to a degree.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many people that are going for it. So it's hard to shine through. You have to really do something creative and really to stand out. And it's hard.
On the other aspect too, I mean, think about it. There's a lot of people opening restaurants too. It's just as saturated.
You're absolutely
You know,
right.
I was sitting and thinking about this last night, and I don't know why. I think it's because you know, we spoke about the podcast, and I was like, you know, the industry it doesn't have a formula. So most people just kind of become opportunists, where they want to learn or take from somebody. Someone's got a little bit of hype, they latch on. Hype goes away, push them to the side. Someone's got a big budget, latch on, goes away, puts them to the side. And I don't think people do it intentionally. It's just the only payout in this industry is engagement with an audience. That's the true payout, because we believe if our audience becomes large enough, if our engagement becomes large enough, then we'll have the leverage to make money through sponsorships. We'll have the leverage to, you know, work with bigger artists. We'll have the leverage, you know, as artists to do bigger shows, sell more tickets, sell more merchandise. As to where in every other industry, instead of opportunists, there's people that want to provide others opportunity. And that's something that as soon as I went from, and I kind of put that on the back burner, I said, let me just put all my attention here. There was so many people that were like, hey man, you know, like we see you're focused here. Let me offer you an opportunity to do something here. I don't know why it's that way. Haven't figured out why.
I think a lot of people just really are quick to attach themselves to any kind of clout when it makes sense. It's like the ego. It's a human ego, really.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be like, hey, here's my moment with this clout, whatever it may be.
Yeah, and they want to say they were there.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that exists, but you know, your answer is ego. You know.
Yeah, that's what it is, really. I think. I mean,
I remember I was more excited to. We did a show in New York, and Odell Beckham Jr. came. He played wide receiver for the Giants at the time. I remember he was there, and I didn't really care to network with him, and so like, kind of just like saw each other, and he's like, put his hands up. I put our hand up, and we sent him a little like gift, you know, to his section, and he just like hops over. I didn't care to have a conversation with him. I said, I just want a picture. And we just took a picture, and he's like, that's it, and I'm like, yeah, because at that moment, all I'm thinking is, people are gonna think I'm cool with Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah,
and that's it. And I'm speaking from experience, you know what I mean?
It's
like
kind of part of the business. It's kind of part of business.
Yeah, and it's in any other business, I'm not taking a picture with the CEO of Coca-Cola if I'm, you know I mean, I'm gonna think about it. You know what I mean? Like you don't care, like but
no,
but if I sit down with the CEO of Coca-Cola, I'm gonna see if there's anything he can offer me as an opportunity. You know, I'm like, oh, can we work? And is there something? You know?
No, yeah, it's true. I was going down a rabbit hole the other day of on Yo-Yo Ma. Saw an interview where he was talking to his son actually about the healthy ego, like how you define what the healthy ego is versus the, I guess, like toxic ego, and having the balance of both of those things.
It's important.
Yeah, I thought that was a pretty insightful way to look at it. Like there's a healthy.
Yeah, because there's a part of you that should be confident, and you should have pride in who you are. You know.
Right, and like if you are close to somebody who you think is cool, or something's exciting to you, like why shouldn't you be excited? Like why shouldn't you be?
You should document it, and that should be natural. You know.
Yeah. It's like it's just part of the culture, I guess.
And a big part of life, I'm learning, is intention. Just like you said, what's your intention going into that moment? Is your intention to walk away with clout, or is your intention to enjoy the moment with the person and document that moment? And that's kind of changed my approach to everything. And to answer the question that you started off with, what was the clash? My intentions were wrong. My intention was to feed my family through the music industry and kind of just set the tone for everything. And although I love the man I am today, I wouldn't go back and change it. I wish my intention was a little bit different going into it. Even starting off with my relationship with you. You know, I wish I had a more business-minded approach instead of just being like, oh man, we got like half a million views in the first couple weeks. Like, let's just keep running it up and thinking I'm like this cool kid now, and like I didn't have a mentor. No one in my whole family generations, no one in my community did music. I was the first Afghan hip hop artist to ever do it. So when I did it, everyone's looking to me for advice, and it gets to your head as a 20, 21-year-old kid where you didn't even have to try. I didn't really try. To be honest. I just got in the studio one day, we made the beat, and I recorded it. The next day you came in my life, and Sean, and we're making this video, and just drops it. And then Vine was there, and someone put the song on Vine, gets like 10 million loops, and then it goes on YouTube, and you know what I mean? And I was like, oh, music's easy. Like, oh, I'm just gonna keep. Yeah. It's me, people think I'm cool, but I didn't realize the fundamentals of it. Well, okay, not everyone has a great director, a great cameraman, great engineer. Okay, the algorithm of Vine was huge. Once that went away, the algorithm didn't exist anymore. Mm. Instagram, you pay to be seen. Facebook, you pay to be seen. Twitter, in the middle. And then when TikTok came back, that's when I realized, I was like, oh my God, it was the algorithm, the For You page. And now Instagram bought the For You. But I didn't know, I didn't look at it as a business at that time. I kind of just looked at it like, oh, I'm like, dude, I must be amazing because I drop a video. I didn't even try,
it is really weird, the world we live in, and like how it's all kind of like based off these platforms, and it's just a strange time. And I feel like at that time back then, when you were starting to when that happened, the ad spend thing, like if you're trying to promote something, it was almost like a stigma around it back then too. Like people would be like, oh, I promoted it.
Literally. And I remember trying it.
Has kind of gone away now. Like now it's just kind of a known whatever. Everybody promotes their stuff.
100%.
It's an interesting thing that the way that people's opinions of social media change over time like that.
100%. It's what they're adapted to now.
Yeah. So let's get to I want to talk about, this story of what happened to you. And
I feel like everything we're talking about in the back of my mind, that event is there. And it's weird. Sometimes it's been 5 years, give or take, maybe 5.5 years. And sometimes I'm like, damn, do I sound like a broken record? Like, to myself, you know what I mean? Like, it's like to myself, I'm like, damn, it's like, is this, because you see comments and like, is this your identity now? And, and I didn't,
that's a tough thing.
Yeah. And sure. I didn't realize like, and I sat and I said, you know what? Like, this is my identity.
It absolutely. That's what I was just about to say.
I was 25 years old, peak my life, maybe as like a male, like, like fit, was going to the gym, twice a day. I was like doing 500 push-ups a day, like, and you wake up and your arm doesn't work anymore. Your hand doesn't work anymore. You're in an ICU room, not knowing why. I'll start the story off like this. Death is not hard. Beating death and living after, that's the hard part, because then you realize you can die at any moment. We were just out as usual, at the diner. It's like 2, 3 in the morning.
Yep. After hours,
regular stuff, at least regular for us at that time. And my issue is that I always involved myself with too many people because of who I was. And not necessarily in a bad way. I just friendly guy, like everyone knew me. Yeah. I was downtown every night.
It's a good issue.
Yeah, I was doing the biggest shows, in the city, so I read the room, at the diner at that time, and I said something's up. And I went outside and I tried to de-escalate a situation that I should have never gotten involved with in the first place.
There was a fight, right?
There wasn't a fight yet. Oh, I read, that's what I'm saying. This is, regardless, 2, 3 in the morning, whatever mindset I'm at, I read the room and I knew something was happening because of
tension.
Because of tension and because of everything I knew.
Yeah.
And you know, I went outside and, you know, I said, hey, whatever you're planning to do, it's not worth it. For one, the kids, you know, I had a friend of mine, and I said, hey, he's with me. You're just going to have to let it be for today. And, like, you're at the most popular diner in the state.
Yeah.
It's not really a good idea. I go back inside. My older brother, you know, Kalo sees the situation, and he says, what's going on? You know, you can't lie to your brother, you know, especially, you know, you just can't. Like, not saying that you can lie, but they just know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And same thing. He tried to do the same thing I did, except he's, you know, more short-tempered.
Yeah.
And when he read the situation and realized it was going to be, you know, imminent danger, you know, he threw the first punch. And he didn't realize that, you know, the kid was armed, and the kid didn't hesitate, you know, to, you know, pull out and shoot his gun. And he shot 5 bullets. One hit me, my subclavian artery.
Mm-hmm.
One hit my brother in his, you know, lower back, like lower spine. And then a couple of them went into the diner that missed. Thankfully, any bystanders.
Jeez. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So my brother turns around, you know, because he was in the midst of I'm just kind of in the background pulling people apart, trying to play superhero.
Trying to help, you know. Anybody that knows you.
You know what's funny is, people that know me know, but I see, like, the fact that I've been public with it. Mm-hmm. Obviously, once I went to the news articles, there was 2 sides. Half of the people wish I died, you know.
Well, what the heck?
Yeah. That was the heaviest part for me, is half of the people were in my DMs like, you know, should have died, you know. And there are people that I saw.
Who says that about anybody, man?
I know.
What in the world?
And half of the people obviously were on the other end, like, hey, what are we doing next? You know, and it was like, my brother turns around thinking like he's the only one that's shot, to say, I'm shot, like, crazy moment.
My heart just thinking about how he felt right there.
Yeah, and he looks down, and, you know, I'm in a pool of my own blood at that point already. I bled out maybe half a gallon at that point of blood. This is before the paramedics arrived. Everyone starts freaking out, and my brother faints because he's like,
that makes sense.
Yeah, like, holy, what's like, you know? By the time he wakes up, paramedics are on scene pretty quick. EMT, fire department. Fire department was first. I remember his name's Alan. He's a firefighter, a Manchester firefighter. I don't know if he still is, but I remember him saying he was one of the first on the scene.
Yep. Shout out Alan.
And I remember he even wrote me a DM. And this is the crazy part. I never got the full story from anyone directly because I never saw the video. But I got the story through all the people involved. So Alan messaged me a while back saying he was the first on scene and that he didn't think I was going to make it. So I'm sure he's probably tried his best and at some point got tired or something and switched off with an officer named Christopher Abile. I don't remember if I'm pronouncing that last name correctly. I had a conversation with him a while after, and he said that several of the first responders came up to him and said, "The kid's dead, bro. Just let him go."
Oh my God.
Yeah, and he said, "I don't know what it was, but every time I would give you a chest compression, you would wiggle the fingers in your right hand, and it kind of gave me a sign like, all right, you're still here."
Yeah.
So ambulance arrives. Finally, they throw me in the back. My brother gets in another, and that's where he makes the phone call to my mom, and he says, like, "Mom, I'm shot, and Sip's dead." Like, it was just like a thing, like, Sip's dead, you know. And get to the hospital, and I remember my doctor telling me after, but that I woke up for a second, and I looked at her, and I said, "Please don't let me die." And that was the only thing I said for the next 2 weeks. And we got to the hospital, and I remember emergency surgery on me. I think a collective of 40 doctors had to work on me for like a few days.
So you remember pieces of that, or no?
This is all told to me.
No,
so
this
I
is
don't
all told to
remember
you. Yeah.
anything from the conversation at the diner. After
you
the
were
fight,
you were lights out
lights
right
out.
when you got shot.
And I think that was a blessing, to be honest.
I think so too.
And then as doctors are coming to me and they're coming to my brother starts, arguing with all the doctors that don't come to me, just go to him. Mind you, this guy's been shot too.
Yeah, but that's,
You know what I mean?
that's Kalo,
yeah,
man.
it's Kalo, and Kalo's like, nah, like don't worry about me. Go to him.
Of course.
And
I think most big brothers would have said the same thing in that case.
Yeah. And I was, 2 weeks, and then crazy, like it's so many little things, right? The doctor who was normally at, shout out to the Elliott Hospital, by the way, there, he wasn't there, so they called Andrew Schultz, if I'm not mistaken. He was in like Nashua or far. It was like a 40-minute drive for him. And they called him because he was a vascular surgeon, and he was filling in, and he just like, he booked it, like 40-minute drive. He said like 15, 20 minutes. Like that's how like he booked it, because the doctor who's usually there had lost a patient, so that they said that he was on leave, or he or she. So he came, and phenomenal doctor. Like, you know what I mean? Like I had a 3% chance to live.
These are the real heroes of our world.
Ridiculous. I'm so glad you said that, because after spending that time there, like nurses, like ICU nurses, like they're really doing God's work, like they're really just like beautiful people, like at the lowest, and they're taking your attitude, and so
those are the people you need to get a selfie with.
literally 100%.
Yeah.
I think about them like till this day. Mind you, throughout all this, I'm having these lucid nightmares. At first it starts off as dreams. So
this is inside of your coma.
Yeah, so I was induced into a coma because of how much blood I was losing. So I lost between 10 to 12 units of blood, which is like a gallon of blood, which is like everything in the human body. Yeah. So the problem is that I got hit in my subclavian artery. The bullet nicked it. Thankfully, it nicked it, and it didn't just like go through the artery. And it's like when your artery gets anything, like most of the time you're dead. But they just, no matter what they did, they couldn't like stop the leak. So I'm just like losing blood, transfusion. I think I lost like 50 pounds within like a couple days,
Wow.
And so I'm having these dreams, and at first it's like, I'm literally do you want to hear, it's crazy, right? I'm in the club, this is in the dream. It's
inside the coma.
Inside the coma. And I mean, the coma, it's so long. We could do a whole other podcast on just the coma.
Yeah, but that's interesting to me.
Because sometimes it was so real that when I woke up, I had a hard time altering my coma dreams from reality. So I thought things that happened in my coma was what happened. I got shot in my coma, but I didn't get shot in my artery. I got shot in my leg. And then I remember my brother just patched it up, and he's like, well, you're just going to have to like keep going. And we just kept going. We went on vacation to Vermont, which I've never been to Vermont, so I don't know why my dream said Vermont. And I was just like this superstar out there, like, just a huge mansion. And like we went to the club, and specifically like A-list celebrities came, like French Montana, Rick Ross, P. Diddy, and all these people came to our section. We had this section, and they couldn't get a section. I had a section, and so they come in and they try to dap me up, and I wasn't even looking at them. Like I was numb at the highest point. And I don't know if it felt so real that when I woke up, I didn't even want to be famous anymore.
Yeah.
That's how, like that moment where it was almost like I went so deep into my subconscious that was like, if you obtain this, like you're still not going to be happy. And I don't know why that feeling stuck with me till I woke up. And then once I realized that, it started to become nightmares. And it was just like, bro, crazy nightmares. Like my ICU nurse torturing me, like lost in a city of London, and just getting mocked, like just chased and these
are all like lucid,
but they felt so. It felt it was so real that to the point when I woke up and my mom was telling me the people that visited me, I was naming them before she did. Because they were coming, the people who came to visit me in the hospital were the people visiting me were the people in my dreams, in my nightmares. So they were, so she named like 5 people, and I was like, yeah, we were all having like dinner, and then she thought I went crazy. Like, you know, she's like, yeah, like this, damn, like he went through some stuff and like he'll never be the same. And I remember I would get frustrated. I'm like, I'm not crazy. And my tongue swollen because
Which makes you look way more crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And she remember like she would like walk out the room crying. She's like, and especially I had the incubator, I think, the tube in my mouth for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So your tongue swells up. So I'm talking, I'm not crazy. And so like not only can they not understand what I'm saying, they can't comprehend what I just went through in my world. I mean, I don't know what they went through. Imagine sitting there for 2 weeks and like wondering if your son's going to live or not, you know?
Yeah.
But they had no idea what I went through. And I think that really shifted everything in my life. How I thought, how I felt about others. And
it's like so amazing just how the brain goes to the deepest place when you're in that state.
Yeah.
In almost like a way that teaches you this big lesson.
And you got to remember, they're giving you ketamine, you know, to induce you. So I don't know if these are like trips off of the ketamine, you know, like I'm going to be realistic here.
They probably,
yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
are.
yeah, they're probably like trips off of the ketamine, you know, or if they're, you know, just like
that's something crazy to think about too. Is like all the drugs that you're on in that type of state, the effect that it would have on your like subconscious and things like that.
Yeah, and I wasn't good for a while. You know what I mean? Like after I woke up, I wasn't good for a while because you're technically just took some of the strongest drugs in the world for 2 weeks, you know. And then you wake up and you're 50 pounds lighter. And I remember I wake up and he came in, and I remember I was so afraid of the ICU because right before I woke up, they had me like handcuffed in the bed and they were like torturing me. So like I remember I woke up and I was like terrified. Like
you thought it was another more of the same nightmare.
And then what changed it was a huge blizzard, and this is the part of the story I skipped, but it's a good time to say it. Like 2 years before that, bro, some guy DMs me, right? It's like, hey man, you know, I live in Boston. I'm also Afghan. Huge fan of yours. We should have kebabs on my rooftop. And I'm like, is this dude asking me out? Like, you know, I don't know the guy, you know, and private profile, like a couple hundred followers. I'm like, you know, it's like you get weird DMs, you know.
Yeah. One Afghan do another. Let's have some kebabs.
Yeah. And then on my rooftop. And then when he said that, I was like, And then so like I took the chance and I went to Boston, and he did have a sick rooftop, and I understood why he named, you know, dropped that.
Like I get it now.
And he's like, beautiful condo, and he's like, just like, man, you're so amazing. And this is before I got shot. This is like, you're amazing. Like and I'm like, what do you do? And he's like, oh, I'm a professor at Harvard, and I'm the chief neurosurgeon at, you know, Brigham. And I'm like, dude, you're way cooler than me. You know, like why are we talking about me? Tell me more about you. And
well, I think to a neurosurgeon, a music artist is probably cool.
Yeah, but to me,
versa.
Yeah, exactly. And then, you know, to bring it full circle, when I got shot, I was the only one in contact with him. No one in my family met him. No one else knew him. One of my mom's cousins was visiting for a wedding, and when I got shot, she heard the news, and my mom was venting to her. I was like, he just met this like doctor. I wish we could just like, you know. And she's like, who? And she's like, the only doctor I know is Ali Sultan. Shout out to Ali Sultan, my brother. And he came to the hospital every night, and he would check my charts. And
beautiful.
They were going to perform a tracheotomy on me to put a tube, because I kept ripping the tube out, given the heavy amount of drugs. I would wake up. They had to handcuff my hands to the bed. So I would wake up and I would try to rip the tubes out. And at some point, they're like, this kid's going to rip his throat out, you know? And like, so they were going to give me a trachea. And he said, we got to get this kid to Mass General. And Mass General's one of the best hospitals in America. And they couldn't. Mass General is just too big, and I had no health insurance. So that hospital, that prestige is going to be like, how are you going to pay this bill? You know, I mean, I get it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I mean, emergency, they saved my life, but they're like, and somehow he got me a bed in Mass General, and $10,000 ambulance ride, took me from Elliott to Mass General. Mass General found a blood clot in my lung, and I woke up my second day there.
So
If-
they did something to trigger you wake up.
And I woke up in Mass General, or else in Elliott, I don't think, I mean, not to knock Elliott, like I'm blessed, you know, to have gone there,
Yeah, of course.
but I don't think I've ever would have woken up, or I would have woken up so smoothly. The tracheotomy, they cut here and they put like a tube in there. My vocal cords would have never been the same. And Ali Sultan respected me so much as not only as a person, as a music artist, that he said, I don't want them to do anything that is going to damage potentially his voice. Like, I need to get this kid out of here. And I'm like, just the timing of the emergency surgeon, the cop giving me chest compressions, Ali Sultan, me meeting him.
Was there like, because so many little tiny things went right that needed to go right the whole way through that entire thing. Do you ever like think about that, and does it affect your just like general gratefulness for like living and stuff? It must. Did you feel gratefulness when you woke up, or were you just totally confused?
I was super confused. I didn't know I got shot. I wasn't grateful yet because of how much pain I was in. I remember the hardest thing about it is not being in the hospital. You're babied, man. God bless ICU nurses. They wipe you clean, you know, they feed you, they give you medicine, you know, you just press a button and they're running. I remember when I finally got out the ICU room, and I think they put me something called a operation room. I think they don't operate on you, but they just put you in there. And I had a gentleman next to me who's about probably in his 80s, and we're both like near death, you know. And I remember the nurse comes to me and she's like, I'm like, I'm good. You know, mind you, I'm so confused. Like, I'm not even thinking grateful, ungrateful. And the ICU nurse says, whatever you do not try getting up on your own. I was like, I'm not going to get, you know. She goes, and I have to use the bathroom. And I had like some sense of like manlyhood, or I'm like, I'm not ringing the bell for her to take me to the bathroom. I get up, I take 2 steps. My arm, there's so much nerve damage that my arm was like 100 pounds, and I just start rolling, and I just crack my head on the bathroom door, and I'm just laying there. All the nurses running, like, are you know? And I'm so confused. I'm like, why am I like this?
Yeah, you still like.
Yeah,
You're like, did you remember like what happened?
No. So at this point, I didn't remember anything. Like, I didn't even know. Yeah, like they're telling me like no, and everyone, I respect everyone around me because they were treading so carefully. They were so focused on making me feel good that they didn't even want to talk about what happened. And mind you, I'm getting hundreds, if not thousands, of like phone. Like, I was kept so busy. You get it? I never had a chance alone. And then I remember, again, like, God bless my family. They took my phone away, and they were like, you're not focusing on anything but recovery. Like, if anyone wants to talk to you, they have to go through us. And that's when I kind of just was like, oh, this is real. And, you know, I finally check out of the hospital, and the 80-year-old dude comes up to me, and he's like, I'll be honest, like, I didn't think you were going to make it. And mind you, I didn't think he was going to make it. Like, that's how bad both of us were. And, you know, he just was like, I think, he was a pastor at a church.
Oh, wow.
And he's offered to, pray with me, and it was a beautiful moment. Old Christian man and a young Muslim kid.
Yeah.
And we just, and nothing else mattered in that moment besides just gratefulness.
Yeah. Would you say you became more like religious, or
1,000%?
You did?
Yeah. And it wasn't till I got to the house and I pulled in the driveway, and it was the first time I cried. And mind you, I'm 2 weeks got shot. Like, I didn't even care. I was just like, oh, I lived, like, yeah. And I got to, and because that's where you feel most normal. I remember looking in the mirror, washing my face for the first time, and it was like, I looked like a skeleton, and I just started crying. I was like, oh my God, like, I'm never going to be the same, and I took it to the chin, and I said, at least I'm going to try. And I remember laying on my back and just being angry and saying, why me? Like, asking God, because religion was always a big part of my household. Growing up, I was always very close to my religion. So, And I said, why me? There's people that do evil. I'm not evil. Yeah, I made, like, I took some wrong steps, but I don't want to hurt anybody. Why am I in so much pain? And that was a crazy amount of nerve pain. Like, ridiculous pain. Broken ribs from chest compressions. My entire, till this day, I have a pipe in my little thing in my neck, that piece of metal that just feels uncomfortable. I'll never grow chest muscles on my left side, back muscles, just anything on my entire left side. And at that point, it was just like, it's so much pain. And it took me like a couple months to understand that this is a test from God. Nothing else made sense.
Yeah.
Nothing else made sense. It was a freak accident. Everyone that called me was like, we're so sorry. Like, this happened to you. We're so sorry this happened to you. And everybody would just call, people have their own life. And I think that's where my whole mentality shifted. They check on you once, that's more than enough. But like, when you're in that position, it feels like it's not enough. It feels like people should just be sitting next to you. And like, some of my friends literally came and they would come and they would sit for a week with me. And then like after a week they would leave and I'd still be upset. And I'm like, damn, like,
Yeah.
It's just like a bad place. It's no one's wrong. It's like, it's your inner battle.
It is kind of like that though. Even when you get a headache or something, you just like want people to be right near you.
Yeah, before I got hit, there was this kid who got into an accident and he was paralyzed. And he said in the beginning his friends would come around and like pick him up and get the wheelchair, and like after a month it changed, and like after a year it was like 2 people left, and then after like 5 years like 1 guy left. And it's like, it was the first time I realized that I made a mistake that I'm going to have to deal with myself.
Yeah.
And no one owed me anything. And I said, the only thing that makes sense is this is God's test. I'm so spoiled my whole life. My community loved me. You saw it. Anywhere we would go, people were offering us food and like places to stay and like support. And like, if we need cars for a video, like they're pulling, like we kind of just like, and that was the first time where I had to go through something alone, and people went through it with me, but not on the pain aspect. And that's where the only thing that helped was religion, prayer, 5 times a day. In Islam, we pray 5 times a day. And
what does a prayer look like?
People, they kind of compare it to meditation, and
Right. I was just going to ask you if you meditate also.
Yeah,
also
and then
or within.
the goal is to is not to come with the intention of meditating. The goal is that you're coming to serve God.
Got you.
Yeah, and at first it's funny you mentioned that, that I'm going to go in there, clear my head, I need to pray. But you don't go in there with that. Meditating is separate.
When you say serve God, what does that exactly mean?
So you purify yourself, you wash, right? And then you go and when you meditate, you kind of, clear your mind, or, you sit there and block out all these thoughts. But when you pray, you're reciting in Arabic different ways to praise God. And mind you, I know this is like foreign to you, or to whoever is watching, it probably sounds like, dude, this sounds extremist. Yeah, like, oh my God, this guy's like, not only is there a spiritual benefit, it's like an all-in-one, because I started reading a lot more. Like, so I started looking into Stoicism, the typical finance guru books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And all of them, every single one, have very, very similar beliefs to Islam and to praying and to believing in one powerful force. If you read all of these books, they all say there's one powerful force that controls the universe. You must be disciplined. Praying 5 times a day is not easy. You must be clean. Because the reason I say that is, think about it. You're doing a prayer at dusk, so right before sunrise. You're doing an afternoon prayer at lunch. You're doing a midday prayer. You're doing a sunset prayer, and then you're doing a nighttime prayer. So it's not like you're just doing all your 5 prayers at once. And you're like, oh no, it's like you have to.
I wake up at noon most days.
Yeah. So imagine that. Like even right now, I'm while I'm fasting, I eat around 4 a.m. and then I pray my morning prayer, and take a little nap, and I wake up and I pray my afternoon prayer. So not only did it teach me discipline, not only did it teach me purity, it helps really strengthen your intentions and what you do things for. So this is where the reward comes in play. After you pray, you do your typical prayer where you ask God for guidance and you make your wishes. And as you repeat these, you're manifesting.
Yeah, right.
Right? So now, if you're doing that 5 times a day routinely, and then after your prayer, you're making, it's called dua, you're locked in. And I started to get locked in. And it took me a while to get there. Don't think like I got shot and like the next...
In like serving, the serving aspect of the prayer, right? What are you giving?
In the Quran, God asked us to pray 5 times a day. And that's like one of the only mandatory things. There's 5 pillars. The more popular ones are Hajj, when you go to Mecca.
Right.
Shahada, which is belief that there's one God. Praying 5 times a day, fasting, and donating to the poor. So the 5 principles are all principles that better you as a man. The common belief is that like jihad and like extremism and like women don't have right. I'm just saying
9/11 stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the political agenda, but the reality of it is like those are the only 5 things that are mandated to do. So when I say serving God, it's because that's the only thing, one of the 5 things that He's asked me to do. And you just go there and you recite, something like Surah Fatiha, we say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahmanir Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in, Ihdina siratal mustaqim, siratal ladzina an'amta alayhim, Ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Ameen. And all you're saying is just all praise due to be God, and different variations of that. And it's very simple.
I'm curious. Let me go back to when you were praying with that 80-year-old man.
Yeah.
And he's a Christian, right?
Yeah.
And do you find that when you had that experience, the crossover of the religions was very similar?
So
in many ways?
All 3 religions, the major ones, are all Abrahamic. So Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, they're all from Abraham, his lineage. So I used to always have open conversations with firm Christians because some people, they think it's a battle. Like in both. And Muslims have that mindset, Christians have that mindset. I used to be open-minded, and I realized is 99% similarity and like 1% difference. And in that moment, I remember when he asked if he can pray on me. So he put his hand on me, and I looked at my dad, and my dad was like, it's good. And the guy
sounds
prayed.
like a pastor for sure.
Yeah. And he just put his hand and did a prayer, and I think it meant a lot to me that he was willing to,
share his beliefs and
and from the heart. He could have easily just been like, "Hey, man, I hope you feel better."
Yeah,
that's typical, right? He got up. The guy was almost dying too. Got up out of his bed, came over to me, shook my hand, and said, "Can I offer you a prayer?" And he didn't say, let's only Christianity pray. Like I said, if you're offering your prayer, that's fine. I want your blessings. I don't, you know what I mean? I want all the blessings in the world right now.
Yeah, because I'm more of a, like, I guess we would say agnostic, where I don't necessarily not believe in things, but I have a very open mind to anything being possible. And one thing that I do think is beautiful about all religion is the aspects of like morality that they offer. And there's such unity in that, I feel like, across the board.
I use it as a tool. And I think that was like what got me close to my religion. Whereas growing up, it was like spirituality. It was like, if you don't pray, you're going to go to hell. If you don't fast, like if you eat pork. And I used to be like, what's hell, dude? Like, we know, but like you're alive, what's hell? Like, what do you mean I'm going to get punished,
Yeah, right.
And then when that happened, I realized I don't think I would have gotten through with it so healthy mentally without religion, because I use it as a tool and I use it as a guide. And once I started doing that, it felt, because I tried reading books and I tried rapping my way out of it. So I don't know if you know that, like, when I got shot, I had an ego that I felt like I had to prove myself, because in the rap industry, there's a notion that if you get shot, you come back, you're cool, and you're tougher. And I used to, I used to carry my gun with me everywhere, and I used to go to places that I shouldn't have been at, and I used to try to say, hey, I'm still a tough guy, and then it was just weird energy. Like, you could just feel it, like that brings weird energy. And then I said, you know what? Let me stop this. Like, let me try doing it the way that I was raised to do, instead of the person that I think I am, and let me just try it. And it started with forgiving the kid who shot me. So the kid who shot me was also Muslim.
And this is like, what I think we need to talk about more than anything is forgiveness.
Yeah.
Because you showing forgiveness to your shooter it had an impact on me. When I found out that, about that.
Yeah.
It's just so beautiful, man. And I think even in fiction writing and stuff like that, throughout, even there's so many examples of revenge stories, and it's almost in our culture that, you need this retribution to have closure.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Right?
It's everyone, you have to get your get back. So when I woke up, there was two people. There's two sides of people. There's people who came to me and said, "Hey, what are we doing to, kind of seek revenge?" I guess you could say, I said, "Do you understand what kind of pain I'm in?" And then the other side where people are like, "Yo, just run away. Just sell your restaurants, sell your house, and just leave. Like, you guys are just going through too much over there." It started with Kalo and his situation. I didn't realize, although I was going through everything, he had the mental trauma, and he went back into society without therapy, without any help from anybody. And he shot somebody.
Right. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. And
why? What was the reason he did that?
On the surface level. On the surface level, it was just like he got into it with the guy who worked for us for a couple days, and
well, Kalo's a veteran.
Yeah.
U.S. veteran.
Yeah. So not only he's a U.S. veteran, and he was in Afghanistan for a couple years.
Yeah, so he's been around some things.
Yeah, he worked with Americans. He worked with Australian Special Force. He's worked with. So he was he was 18 years old when he went. So he hasn't had the easiest go. And then then he got shot in America.
And you got shot.
And I got shot.
Probably more importantly.
Yeah, and then now he's just working as if everything's normal. Honing in all his rate, and he just disappeared from the world. So this is where I realized, this is why I'm a little bit more outspoken than him, I think, is that he just kind of cut everybody off, and he just worked at the store. And, a few Ramadans ago, it was actually Ramadan, he was fasting, and, he got into an altercation with the gentleman, and the guy kind of baited him, to shooting, and Kalo shot. And I remember thinking at that moment, how much worse can my life get? Like, this is.
That's that's getting kicked while you're down. Right there.
This is crazy. Like, what am I gonna? I can't work. My arm I didn't know how to. I remember I went to the store just to hang out, and the guy's like, "Can you just help me? I need to use the restroom. Can you cover me?" And I covered him. He asked me to open a shopping bag. I couldn't open a shopping bag with one hand. I didn't know how to tie my shoes. I didn't know how to zip up my jacket. And that's when the fact that I had one hand really hit me, because Kalo really babied me and my dad babied me. They let me recover at home for a year. And when I got back to reality, I remember giving change to a customer with one hand. I was like, oh my God. And then that happens, and I had no choice. So step up, he gets incarcerated. and he goes to the same holding facility that the kid who shot us was at. So
Crazy. That's crazy.
yeah, and so
What a cool
his for a while was, I can't wait to see that kid again, and then be careful what you wish for, and then so he got there, and remember he calls and says, now what? Like, you tell me, you're the one that suffered. And I said, I just let it go. Like, I'm so done. I'm hurt. Like, this is too much. Like, this is not fun anymore. Like, it's not cool. I don't care about anything. And he said, I'm so glad you said that, because this place sucks. I don't even want him to be here. Like, this place sucks for him. Look at what he did to us. Like, I don't want him to be here. And a couple of days go by, and he calls me and he says, I feel like we should write a letter to the judge. And I said, are you serious? And he said, yeah, in our shooter's case. And I said, okay. And he's like, wait, you're serious? I'm like, yeah, I'd love that. And he's like, okay, great. Like, I just feel like this is going to be good for us,
And what's something so wild to think about is, in that initial conversation, if you had said to him
yeah, it would have just shifted.
Screw that guy.
Yeah, it would have just shifted everything.
Oh
man, it would have been
It's such a big moment.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize how big of a moment it was. I was just so tired, man. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I didn't sit there and ponder, like, do I forgive him? Do I don't? I just naturally didn't care enough, and I was like, forgiving him is just gonna help me move. It was, like, today is like what you just said. It's like revenge, or it's forgive and forget. Like, I forgave him, but I didn't forget what happened. Like, till this day, like, I forgive him. I'll never forget what happened, though. I'll act accordingly.
No, you can't.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, I always tell my friends, like, I think that's why my hand has the nerve damage that it has, is because if I would have just got shot and woke up with no permanent damage, I would have felt unstoppable. And I wouldn't have been the man I am today. But this is a constant reminder of a situation and of a circumstance that I just can't forget. So,
yeah, I see you post all the time, like you're trying to open a pickle jar or whatever it is.
Yeah. Like, even I wouldn't be able to pick up this cup of water with this hand right now. You know, and
it's a handicap.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
Yes.
It's a disability. And at this time, they weren't offering me disability. I have $300,000 in medical debt. My brother just got incarcerated. My dad is in the lowest point of his life because both of his sons got shot, and one of them is, our initial offer was 25 to life. We don't know a lawyer. We never had, you know what I mean? We don't know anybody in the prison system. We don't gang bang. So, and forgiving just felt like the easiest thing to do. And sometimes people tell me, well, that must have been so hard, but it was the easiest thing to do. And
yes.
we wrote a letter to the judge, and it helped. Helped. I feel like it helped his sentence. In the letter, I wrote that although I went through some of the heaviest stuff in my life, I'm still out here creating opportunity. I'm still out here with my family. His life is on pause, and by the time he comes home, he's just going to be another kid that never got the chance. So they offered him a deal where if he gets his degree, he gets a shorter sentence, which I think is reasonable. I mean, going to jail is not reasonable. It sucks. And I'm saying that because we've been through it as a family. But given the circumstance, he has something to come out with.
And it all ties back to religion too, like
right. And this is the best part. So they both get sent to the same prison, and when they do, the next Ramadan comes around, and they make amends. It very subtly, just kind of like through mutuals and stuff like that. And the first Jummah prayer, so how you guys have Sunday church, or Christians have Sunday church, Muslims have Friday prayer. The first Friday prayer done in Concord State Prison was done by them two.
Wow. Whoa.
Yeah. The kid who shot me and my brother had the first Friday prayer together in prison. And that's when I was like, oh my God, there's no other way this would have happened.
That feeling that must give you is probably the best possible feeling you could ask for.
Yeah, it was the closure. And I remember he would sometimes ask me like, are you okay with this? Like, I'm like, man, you don't understand. Like, this is amazing. And then it ended up being from them to like dozens of people at every Friday prayer, because they just
Started it.
Yeah, they're like, this is deep. And then like every Friday, my brother is something called the khutbah, where you like give a little baby speech about a certain topic, and he would just give khutbah every Friday, and he's spreading knowledge, and it became a thing, and
It's beautiful.
it was beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. No, that and it all comes down though to that one. It really comes down to that moment.
Yeah.
That moment that would have shifted it from you.
Yeah. I just think it was so heavy, and I feel like that's why all that pain was put on me. In our religion, we believe that that sometimes God pulls back his most loved ones with pain. And I firmly believe that's what it was. I was always a very religious, pure-hearted kid, and I think the man that I was becoming because of the music industry, I was kind of straying away from who I truly was. Not necessarily just straying away from God, but like who I truly was. I was going out, the image I was portraying, the lyrics. And I remember when Kalo got locked up, he had a daughter, so his wife was pregnant at the time. And I remember she would watch my music videos because she just, I was kind of like the figure in her life at that time. And I would listen to what I'm saying and like watch her dance to it. And I was like, are you serious?
Yeah, you didn't like it.
I didn't like it.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And
That's
I was like,
eye-opening right there.
yeah. And I remember where I was like, this is my niece. Like, I have a daughter now, like, I remember coming here I told you, I'm coming here with the intention that when my daughter's 15, 16, whatever, and she's going down the loophole of who her dad was, this rapper who got shot, like what kind of man was he? What kind of man did he become? And hopefully her watching
an amazing one.
Yeah.
You're leading you showing forgiveness in that intense of a situation is almost unheard of for me, and I think is like gonna pave the way for so many more people to find to look at as an example.
Yeah.
Which is what's so beautiful, including me, man.
Yeah.
Like when I had heard that, it not to make it sound so casual, but in a couple of ways I was like, who can I forgive?
And I think that's the intention that I keep having. Like before, when I would release a piece of content, it was like, oh, people are gonna think I'm cool. And now it's like, what kind of impact can I make? And I just posted a video, like a reel. I didn't post on Instagram for a while. And then, I'm in a better place now. Like Kalo's home, we have, businesses, the family's happy. And I was like, I just got bored and I started playing on Instagram and I posted a reel and it got 24 million views in like 3 days.
Yeah.
And
it had intention.
Had intention.
Yes.
And back to the beginning of our conversation, when we sat here at this table, intention is everything. And my intention going forward has always been purity and impact. And I want to stay that way. And I hope that this podcast and this conversation does the same, and someone sits there and watches it and says, this was a conversation that I can walk away with and change tomorrow for the better.
Yeah. And you said, like, it's so easy, it's so simple. It's such a simple concept,
easier.
and it really is.
Yeah.
And once you kind of feel that, and you don't have to go, forgiveness doesn't mean, by the way, like going up to the person that did wrong to you and being like, I forgive you.
Yeah.
It really just, all it has to be is in your own mind, in your own heart. You feel that. To
your point, we've never spoken to the kid. His sister obviously hated me, which I get, she probably felt like, it's a sister. She probably felt like I'm partly responsible for the reason her brother's...
Same way Kalo probably felt it.
Absolutely. And I remember...
reverse.
When I wrote the letter, somebody had to come pick it up. Somebody from their family had to pick it up. So she came by, and I remember it just looked like... It was probably the hardest thing in the world for her. Like, like a young girl coming into, my place of business, like vulnerable, like knowing that she needed that letter, or I don't know, you know. And she sat there, and I said, "Can I read it out loud to you before I give it to you? And what if you don't?" And I read it out loud, and she started crying, and I don't know why. Like, I'm not even like, I just asked her if I could hug her, and we just hugged, and she just cried in my arms for like, you know, a little bit. And I think that was probably the heaviest moment of it all, because I have a little sister, and she reminded me so much of her. And I said, I felt so accountable. If I just if I just minded my business that day,
Yeah.
it would have possibly been a different outcome. And, you know, and I still get comments for like, and I get it, but I've never been the type of person to pin the blame. If something happens, I don't think about, I can't control anyone's actions. I can only control my actions. So moving forward, I'm only going to think about what I can control, and what I could have controlled was not getting involved. And that ultimately led me, I did a speech at George Washington University. It's called The Art of Forgiveness.
Yeah. Amazing speech.
Thank you.
Amazing speech.
And I ended it by saying, you know, self-forgiveness. Most people hold grudges against themselves.
Yes.
You know, and they're angry inside. If I did this, if I did that, just let it go, man. Let it go. Become the person you want to become. Forward motion. Like, I always, like, forward motion is so important. Like, just sitting there on pause, sitting there. I don't know why I have this story in my head. I have no idea why, and I don't even think I've ever told you this. When we
Amazing.
were shooting, we shot Flex, we shot Moment, we shot Anagram, and I showed you a music video for a different artist.
Yeah.
And I was like, this dude's like amazing.
Yeah.
And
Joiner.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was Ross Cappuccioni.
Yeah. Great video.
And, you know, it was, you guys hit it off. You know, you got connected, and then you guys took off. A part of me was like, that should have been me. And I wasn't a hater. Like, I was so happy that you were succeeding, but it's just natural to feel that way, you know?
Yeah.
It's unnatural, and it's not taught to us that when you feel that way, you it's okay to accept it. I was confused to why I was feeling that way, and I tried to compete with it. So I was like, oh, I gotta shoot better videos, and I gotta do better music, and I was chasing the wrong momentum instead of just doing things my own way. And when I went through everything I went through, and you were just there for me as a person, you're just kind of calling, checking in, and meeting your parents, and them giving my daughter a onesie and you know, some toys, and you just like realize like, what was that? You know what I mean? Like, what was I doing?
Yeah.
What was I like? You know, like what?
Why do we ever feel this way?
Yeah, and you know, it's such a small amount. It was such a small amount. It wasn't enough for me to like. I always loved you, and you know what I mean. But it's just such. That's the amount of strength. Like, that's the amount enough to do enough damage to you. You know, to sway you this way, to sway you that way, and it came to that point where I just didn't care anymore. I cared about the goods that people did with me, and the bad, maybe I misinterpreted it. It wasn't bad, you know. That's a lot of things. I misinterpreted that whole situation, you know, from the jump. You know.
And as you go, I mean, you know, that like success and blowing up and all that stuff, like, it doesn't necessarily equate to who you are as a human being, and it doesn't equate to something that's necessarily good all the time either, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of
Yeah, it's funny because my
dark side to that.
right before I got shot, I got a record with French Montana.
Yeah, right. I remember that.
Yeah, and I got scammed. You know, his French Montana's brother. You know, it's his brother. It's like me and Kalo. So
Yeah.
you know, got the feature. You know, we paid him $60,000, and I got shot. And I woke up, and they would call. You know, his camp would call and be like, "Hey, man, you know, whenever you're ready, like, we're ready." And like, and years went by, and I remember my aunt, and she's like a young, cool aunt. You know, she came to the hospital and was like, I feel like you weren't meant to be famous. Like, you weren't meant to blow up. Like, I feel like in that way.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like God's trying to protect you from something. And I remember I got angry in my heart at her. I'm like, what? This is not, you don't understand what I'm going through right now. How could you say that? But like now, at this moment, reflecting back on what she said and to what you just said, not all fame, I guess attention equates to good attention, you know?
Well, if you had gotten famous, right, doing that music that you didn't want your sister dancing to,
Yeah,
that probably wouldn't have been the fame you wanted.
exactly.
You know?
And you know, it's a blessing to be here today, man, in this state of mind, and
Yes.
you know, have conversations like these,
Yes.
and hope that it leaves people with something that,
It will.
you know, the industry is
Me
you know,
included.
yeah, and
Big time.
likewise.
Sorry, I cut you off. The industry,
No.
you were saying?
No, the industry is not what it seems to be, you know.
No way.
You know, and you know, not to go down that rabbit hole of like, you know, but I think people are waking up, and
Oh, for sure.
you know, and it's
Yeah.
you know, the transparency of social media, you know,
Huge.
yeah. It's funny because to your point, when I stopped care, I remember I dropped my album Sleep in Peace.
Yeah.
I think it's like you did the cover,
Yeah.
amazing. You and Dark Side, shout out Dark Side.
Yep. Love Dark Side.
I remember the day before it was dropping, my dad, my mom, everyone's like, you excited? Because usually I'm excited to drop. And I was like, I don't even want to drop. I think I'm going to delete it. My dad's like, mind you, after everything I've told you, he's the one that's like, are you serious? Like, you know what? Tell everybody. Start hitting everybody up. Like, this is a big deal, you know? I was like, nah. And I just remember dropping it with the intention of like telling my story for the first time in a long time. And it went number 5 on the iTunes chart, so it was huge as an independent artist. And I just started making TikToks about my situation and putting my songs behind them, and you know, got millions of streams just based off of people being like, "This is crazy," because you're not only are you rapping about it, but like, look, you're literally recovering, and you're forward motion. You're trying to get better, and you know, to your point, that was my niche. It was like this kid with this story, and then people who are going through things.
But it's a good story. It's a good intention. It's like it's an intention that's going to help the world, you know, make a dent in a positive way.
Yeah. And then
It really is.
And then after all, I was like, I recorded my last album. I mixed it. I mastered it. 12 tracks, like amazing. Some of the best music I ever made, in my opinion.
That's all that matters.
And I just stopped. I remember I read the story of our prophet, peace be upon him, Prophet Muhammad.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember there's specifically one part where he's praying and he goes down on his forehead. And this guy, in the name, Islam wasn't popular at that time. You know, he's spreading the message early on. And he pours, you know, to make a mockery of him, he pours camel guts on him.
Gross.
Yeah, like, you know, like bully.
Yeah.
And he doesn't get up from his prostration, like his forehead, because he didn't want to get up with the guts of him, you know, while he's praying to God. So he just stood there.
Just kept praying.
Until his wife finally came and just cleaned him up. And when she cleaned him up, he got up. And then that level of discipline, of like how much shame he must have felt. And I kind of, like after my shooting, different situations where how much shame, like he's stayed strong to his belief. He really believed, regardless of what it was. It taught me the idea of belief, where I was like, I truly believe that I'm a Muslim. I grew up Afghan. Why don't I just stand on those principles instead of trying to be this rapper who's also Muslim and also a family guy and also. And the thing that made the most sense for me at that point was just to stop.
Yeah, it's ultimately a mask, you know.
Yeah.
That you're wearing. We all wear masks, like so many of them. Right?
Yeah,
in
exactly.
different situations, but being an artist, it's like a very like branded mask.
Yeah, and it's disgusting.
And a lot of people have input about it as well.
And it was just.
Which is the worst part.
Yeah.
It really is. so toxic and infectious when you want to be your purest version of yourself as an artist, but then you're just not, because
That's not what the business.
that's not what's going to make money. You know,
exactly.
like,
And I was going through
even
that
though
for so long.
probably actually is what would make the money.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
yeah,
these people. This gets me fired up, like talking about this, because it's just like, it is one of my.
yeah.
Like,
And I always admire that about you. You were always big on doing the music I had that had the biggest message, and always telling me to stay true to myself. You were one of the very few people, and you did that throughout your whole career. Everyone you worked with, you
always.
did,
That's
and
for sure. And thank
that's
you
always
for
been, of course, that's always been a very
saying that.
strong trait of yours.
Yeah. I do pride myself on trying to let people shine as who they are instead of the mask.
Yeah, yeah.
Because the mask is toxic, always ends bad when that path is chosen.
Yeah,
Or when you start listening to the voices in the room that don't necessarily see your same vision as an artist, but they just know that if you do this thing, it'll maybe make them more money, or it's a more secure way to make money.
yeah,
And then the art just gets confused.
yeah.
It gets
And just
confused.
gets lost. Yeah,
Yeah. And the reality of it is that the thing that's going to probably do the best and make the most money or whatever in reality is the thing that, it's like, there's a Snoop Dogg quote where he's like, we filled the void. Like, that's why the thing that doesn't exist, the thing that's not trending, the thing that nobody's seen yet. If you can do that thing, if you can fill the void, then, you have
then you're
the best
everlasting.
shot.
Yeah,
Right?
you're everlasting.
And it's like, everybody's such a snowflake, and the best way to fill that void, I think, is to just be yourself.
Yeah, 100%. And it's hard, because people are afraid of what people, it's easy to fake to be someone, and then people judge them, and you're like, you don't really care, because you're like, that's not really me, But when you're yourself and you get judged, that's why, I said earlier, I've been, for the last 5 years, I've been going through this. This is literally, this hour and a half we spoke is literally my life for the last 5 years. And then so many other moments that, just getting kicked and punched. And sometimes I'm afraid of, like, although I'm proud of who I am, I'm ashamed of what I went through, because a lot of it could have been easily preventable.
But you forgive yourself.
100%.
Yes. And
Yeah. And that's why I say I'm proud of myself,
Yes.
And ultimately, forgiveness, I said this quote, forgiveness made me cry. Forgiveness made me weak. Forgiveness gave me life, and forgiveness set me free. And it's true.
I feel like that's a good ending sentiment.
Yeah.
So I guess with that, I'll say, hey, man, thanks for, being episode 1 of my whatever this is, whatever this becomes. We'll see how it goes. Take it as it comes.
Thanks for your interest in my story, in my life, and thanks for this therapy session. I think it was.
This message of forgiveness is one of the most powerful things ever, and it needs to be heard by as many people as possible. If I can help make that heard in any way, I want to talk to you too more about, like, just ways we can get that, like, celebrate that story or that sentiment, because it's just so huge and not talked about.
Yeah.
It really isn't. Retribution and revenge is talked about
way more.
Constant.
Yeah.
Way more.
Yeah.
I feel like there needs to be some kind of a shift in that.
100%.
So I appreciate it. I appreciate you. I love you.
Likewise. Love you too, man. Honestly. Love, man. And that's a wrap. That's
a wrap for 2025. This was vodka.
Nice.
No, I'm just kidding. This is coconut water.
Nice. Electrolytes.